first off, Charlie Taylor goes off after what? 8 minutes? 8 fucking minutes, right? And then
Burnley get a clean sheet.
Do you know what? That wasn't even the first part. The first part was that Don McCalvert-Lewin didn't even play because Everton City was called off. Now, thankfully, I have no City, so I can't complain that much. But you mean to tell me FPL people and Premier League and bloody Spurs and Fulham, the irresponsible bastards over Christmas, actually trying to have a life and seeing their family, the pieces of shit, because of them, I have Kane and I have Son and they're not going to play, and they are directly costing me ranks. I'm blaming them directly. I don't care.
Yeah, it's a crazy week. Like you said, there's been 4 teams that haven't played. A lot of big assets in there. Calvert-Lewin, De Bruyne, Cancelo, Kane, Son. And then even like backup players who you might need this week, like Lookman or Anguissa. They're not even playing for Fulham. So yeah, it's just been nuts. And then like you said, Charlie Taylor went off injured. Even for my team, I had quite a good week. We'll maybe chat about that a bit later. But I had Vardy and Martial both benched because obviously it's these fixtures that are so close together straight after Boxing Day. So yeah, everyone's team's been hit by absolute carnage. Some more than most. A bit of bad luck in there. But we're going to talk about some things later on in the pod about how to mitigate these sort of future risks. There's some tips and advice that can help everyone, I think. Yeah,
it's all about mitigating risk through this current period. And I suppose just using your head. And we've got a lot of things here that people mightn't necessarily consider straight off the bat, but we're going to recommend they do and just talk about them. It is obviously going to be the hot topic of the week. And, you know, I actually think, Wes, I think it was either in the last podcast or the one before, me or you definitely made a joke or said about all the players are going to see their families at Christmas. There's going to be postponements. Yeah. There's going to be fuck-ups to the fixture calendar. And, you know, that's why a strong bench is essential. Now, I should have followed my own advice or your advice because I've Lamptey there who didn't play. Jamal Lewis, who's up against Liverpool, might even get a game. It's not looking great, but we'll get into that in the podcast. Before we do that, I'll just give out a shout out to partners of the show, Fanslide. Fanslide is the world's first in-play fantasy football game, completely complementary to FPL. It's not just another FPL, it is a different product altogether. As I always say each week, Wes, because I think it's particularly pertinent, it's just, you know, we do all this research, we understand all these players, we understand final third touches, shots in the box, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You make your decisions, they're done by an hour and a half before the start of the game week. Why not use all that research on another platform?
Yeah, and especially with the week that most people had in FPL, obviously you've locked in your team a few days ago, then it's gone to absolute shit. So why not play Fanslide, bring in players live in the game? You can't go wrong there. You can't get postponements, and you can actually use your fantasy knowledge to hopefully win yourself some cash or some bragging rights with your mates.
Well, that's it. So they've got fixtures on the app on Wednesday, Friday. I've looked at those. I'm pretty sure Saturday and Sunday too. Lots of them with cash up for grabs. It is free to play though, so yeah, go give the Fanslide app a download and give it a go and let us know how you get on. As I always say, Wes, straight up, no kissing. We're not going to dick around here this week and get into our teams and bore the tits off these people. You know, they can stay around for that chat later in the podcast. We'll maybe go through our teams, skim through them, look at some of the players, look at potential transfers, look at players that aren't in either of our teams that are on both of our radars or that we hate or whatever. But this week's topic, I'd say, I mean, these things always go on longer than we expect, but I'd say the first 20 minutes at least of this podcast has to be around fixture postponements, mitigating risk, and basically, to put it in a nutshell, winners make their own luck, Wes. You know, there's a lot of luck, and it's very easy to blame the luck aspect, but there's a lot you can do to put the odds in your favour and just tilt the balance towards you. I think first up, we just need to discuss Everton City and Spurs and Fulham have obviously been postponed.
Yeah.
Did you have any sniff of this before the deadline? Did you do any planning around this? Or I know the Fulham one and Spurs is definitely after the deadline, but particularly with Everton and City, were there any rumours?
City, it's game weeks are blowing into one at the minute. There's obviously so many game weeks back to back. But in terms of City news, I think that there was some COVID rumours, or not so much rumours. There was Gabriel Jesus and Kyle Walker missed out on the last Premier League game I'm sure they did, with obviously COVID. So there's a little bit of an indication that there's a problem at City potentially. And yeah, so, but it's tough. So it's been a perfect storm in terms of, obviously there's Boxing Day fixtures on the 26th, and then fixtures straight after midweek on like the Monday, Tuesday. So rest time. Players like Vardy getting rested. He plays, pretty much every Premier League game when he's fit, but he gets a rest. So even without the COVID stuff, you've got big players getting their rest because of the closeness of the fixtures. Adding to that, three big teams plus Fulham getting a postponement, and it's just been a recipe for disaster. There's even rumours that, obviously we're recording this on the Wednesday before the Liverpool game, and there's rumours that Andrew Robertson's going to get rested as well. So, I've preached about having a strong bench all season. I've got quite lucky in terms of, out of the 4 postponements, I've only had Lookman, who misses out, who was on my bench. So I have got lucky there. But yeah, I haven't practiced what I've preached because I couldn't quite get Lamptey out of my team. I didn't really want to take a -4 for my third bench player. But maybe I should have focused my transfer there.
Well,
yeah, go on.
Sorry, just on that Liverpool thing again. Do you know, it was only 3 days ago they had a fixture against West Brom, finished 1 each, working right to the end. Salah, Mane played the full 90. Bobby Firmino came off in the 90th minute. They're 3 starters who are in form, who people have in their teams. And there is a good chance that at least one of them could be rotated. There's a good chance. I'm not saying it'll happen. Obviously, Klopp is probably one of the most predictable managers in the league, but it's not outside the realms of possibility at all. And that'll just further sort of twist the knife. And
exactly.
There's a lot of things we're going to go through today which kind of, will help protect our teams against things like weeks like this going forward, because there could be many of them. And I suppose if you're ready, I can start going through the little bullet points we have here and things we wanted to discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one thing I will say before we do get started, that if you're sitting here listening to this and your team's you've had a shocker in this game week, don't worry about it too much. There's going to be a lot of people in the same boat, a lot of people who can't field 11 players. My own team, I'm looking likely to field 8 starters and then Martial and Vardy with cameo appearances. So, it's one of those weeks where it's happened to a lot of people. It's not just your team. So it's kind of a good thing, at least, that, we're all in the same boat. And if your mini league was in the same boat, then no one's sort of lost or won too much ground.
Absolutely. I mean, it is what it is. Weeks like this hit everyone. Some people get lucky this week, but, the law of averages, albeit there's only 38 game weeks, maybe you will be slightly unlucky, but it'll catch up on everyone in the end in different ways. We all have our shit weeks. We all have injuries. We all have Charlie Taylors or transferring out Ben Chilwell's and then he comes and plays 90 minutes and getting an assist. We all have these things going on. So, look, I suppose it's about picking yourself up. Not getting too down about FPL. It's FPL at the end of the day.
100%.
And, focusing on what you can do to protect your team going forward. So, the first thing, and these are genuinely in no particular order, but something that is a lot of people wouldn't think about, and I'll be honest with you, Wes, I wouldn't have thought about it, but a lot of people have been stung by it this week, is your captain and vice captaincy and why it's so important to pick different games, particularly this season. Now, you were saying to me just before we recorded, you would have done this anyway, probably through winters in particular.
So even without COVID in previous FPL seasons, in the winter, if there was, sometimes you get, rumours about certain games being called off. I think I remember one year Man City was in doubt, and I was thinking about, I can't remember the exact players. Let's just say it was Aguero and De Bruyne, captain and vice, because they had a plum home fixture. I think I actually then changed my vice to someone in a different fixture just because of that doubt. So this week some people would have got stung by Kane and Son. You have been unlucky because we did expect Kane and Son to both play. Mourinho doesn't rotate those two. There was no real indications that game would have been called off, but the lesson there is in future game weeks, COVID can strike at any time, especially in England at the minute. It's rampant. So what you need to do is just, if you wanted to captain Kane this week, do that, and then put your vice captain as the likes of Salah, Bruno Fernandes, whoever really, who was playing in a completely different fixture, and therefore you're giving yourself an extra chance to make sure you get a captain out there.
Mm. I mean, it just makes so much sense whenever you talk about it, but a lot of people wouldn't maybe be considering that.
Yeah.
Do you know? But yeah, thankfully this week I had Salah captain. I was saying to you again just before we recorded, I was sorely tempted with Kane. Do you know, the fixture with Fulham, it just made sense in so many ways. But thankfully I sort of stuck to the sort of sheep mentality. Everyone seemed to be going Salah. I'll go Salah and protect myself, and it's turned out to be a great decision because this week could have been a disaster. Like for me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you'd have done it, if you'd have put your captain on Kane, you'd have probably just thought, or some players might have just thought, right, Kane's definitely going to start. Kane captain, their vice captain isn't a big consideration. So many times I see vice captains on players where people haven't given it much thought. But in every week, I always do give it thought, and especially now, we've just seen how paramount it is. Because if you had gone Kane captain, but if you'd have been smart and obviously vice captain Salah, then it would have been fine. But if if you hadn't thought about it too much, then you could have been stung with a Kane and a Son captain and vice.
Do you remember last season? You might remember this better than me. I can't remember the ins and outs of it, and people listening will definitely remember it. There was the Kevin De Bruyne was a lot of people's vice on one week. And there was a big player. It could have been Salah, it could have been Bruno, it could have been a striker who didn't start. He pulled up in the warm up or something. I don't know if you remember this. This was last season, and De Bruyne scored like an 18-19 pointer.
I remember people getting. I think it was maybe Sterling and De Bruyne, captain and vice. Sterling missed out entirely, and De Bruyne smashed it.
Might have been that.
I kind of remember that, but yeah, things like that can happen. So your vice captain's always important. Especially with especially at this time of the year. Take the COVID thing out of it. Like I just said earlier, Vardy gets rested, and comes off the bench, and other players. Leicester played virtually a B team. Palace rotated. Palace, Roy Hodgson plays the same back four every week pretty much, but even he rested players like, I know people haven't really got him at the minute, but Van Aanholt missed out for Mitchell and stuff like that. So yeah, at this time of the year, you just never know who's going to miss out. And like I said, add the COVID factor into it. Either individuals can miss out on games or whole games can be postponed, like we've just seen.
Another consideration is tripling up on teams.
Yes.
It's never been riskier.
Yeah. So is that? Yeah. I'll talk about my team a little bit, but it's applicable. So I've got double. I'm building towards double game week 19. So that filters my amount of teams I can target from 20 teams down to 10. So there's definitely less teams to choose from, because I am hoping to go big on that. So this week I took out Calvert-Lewin, who was someone who didn't have a double game week and hasn't been performing too well in the last few weeks when he has played. He's kind of, because I think Everton's creativity has gone down with Luka Dean not being in the team, James Rodriguez, Richarlison, etc. So I took out Calvert-Lewin for Martial, but I already had Fernandes and Rashford. Now, I don't regret that, because Martial, I knew there was a chance he wouldn't play in this game week because obviously Cavani's there, a good player, and games close together. But I thought, right, bring Martial in. He might come off the bench against Wolves and grab me something, but in the long term, I want him for the double game week, and I also want Rashford and Fernandes. But now I'm thinking, with this COVID stuff, if I'd have got, if Man United would have been the team that got their game called off, if Wolves had have come down with a COVID problem, then I'm missing out on 3 big players there out of my team. Plus the likes of Carrie and Lamptey, plus obviously Balbuena, who was on my bench, he missed out this week. So I'd have been really struggling this week if Man United would have been the team called off. So I do regret going triple. And what my plan now is, I will persevere with that till the double game week in 19. And then I will definitely look to ship at least one of those out and try and make... Well, I don't want to completely write off triple ups, because I do like them. In the past, I've had great success with them. I remember a couple of seasons ago having Coutinho, Firmino and Mane. I think this was sort of pre-Salah days, and that worked well. And even obviously this season, people have got the likes of Dallas, Rafinha and Bamford as a good triple up. So I don't want to write it off completely, but what I'm saying is, if you want to play, risk averse, if you're thinking any fixture can get postponed at any point, then it makes sense not to have 3 from one team and maybe max it to a double up, maybe.
Max it to a what, sorry?
Max it to an FPL double up.
Double up.
Subscribe
son. Here. Subscribe, hit like, leave a review. Thanks, baby.
5-star.
I got carried away there. Sorry, I just love hearing our name actually used within the podcast, because while it is definitely like an FPL cliche, it's not used as frequently as I'd like. Anyway, so the triple ups are definitely very risky. They're always,
risky,
they're always a bit risky. They always are, well, it depends on the team you're backing and their fixtures, etc., etc. There's a lot of factors, but this year, I don't think anyone can say there has been a riskier time. There just hasn't been, because we haven't had a pandemic. Especially, since FPL has existed.
Like you say, yeah, it's definitely risky because of that. And also, the form this year, I think I heard the commentators in the Man United game saying something like, I can't remember the exact stat, but virtually every team in the league has been beaten by at least 3 goals. If you think Liverpool obviously got spanked early on in the season. And then you've got, it was something like no team has won more than 3 in a row or something. I've probably got the stats slightly wrong, but the point is that, and the league table shows us how tight it is. You know, in previous years gone by, we've had Liverpool and City winning 10 odd games in a row, but that's just not happened this year. So you take my Man United triple up, for example. If, I got fairly lucky there as well in terms of a late goal from Rashford, assisted by my captain Fernandes. So yeah, a huge slice of fortune there because the game was kind of petering out towards a 0-0. So there would have been 3 players blanking straight off the bat. And then, United then have Aston Villa in the next game. Could be another blank. And then I'm kind of relying on the double. So I have taken a gamble there. And then, obviously I don't want to repeat myself, but you add in the COVID factor, the rotation factor, blah, blah, blah. It is risky tripling up, but then I guess it's kind of high risk, high reward. If you get one of those games where, when it was when United battered Leeds 6-2, if you'd have had 3 United players that game, you'd have probably cleaned up. And likewise with other big results this season. So it can work both ways.
But I think, it can work both ways. High risk, high reward. But I genuinely think if you want to be a very competitive FPL manager at the minute, you shouldn't be going for a high risk strategy like that at a time like this.
Yeah.
I think the clever move, the smart move, while it might pay off to go triple whatever, the move is to de-risk slightly, cover your bases.
Yeah.
And that leads on nicely to de-risking, slightly covering your bases. The bench, this is something that we've talked about probably every episode this season. Everyone on Twitter talks about it everywhere. Everyone on every forum there is. Hot topic of the season, you could say, with COVID. Depth has never been more important. You need to put depth into your bench, and value on the bench isn't a bad thing with da. And no one listens. Some people listen. Some people definitely listen, but a lot of people don't. Myself kind of included. I have Souček there, Lamptey. Okay, they're not rag 4 millions, but Lewis, Lamptey's not playing this week. Lewis is up against Liverpool. Even if he does play, he's probably scoring 0 or negative points.
Yeah,
it's my thing going into next week is now, right, I'm happy with the core of my team. I'm happy with the big players. None of them are bad players. But I'm going to get rid of Lamptey, and I'll probably get rid of Lewis in my 2 transfers.
Yeah. Strengthen.
And I've only got 0.6 in the bank, but strengthen them to just players who get 2 points every week. That's what I want. If you get 2 points every week and an assist every few weeks or this or that, great. A wee clean sheet every so often, wonderful. But it's about having starters so that whenever, because this week Kane and Son aren't playing for me, neither's Calvert-Lewin. Lamptey isn't coming on.
Those points,
whatever about Lewis. Taylor is injured for me. I need to have playing players on my bench.
Yeah. So the good thing about defenders is there's a lot of choice in that sort of 4.5 to 5 million bracket, and also if you're playing the double game week strategy of bringing in players from those teams, you've got Southampton assets at that price. Bednarek, Stevens, Kyle Walker-Peters. Although he is on 4 yellow cards, so watch out for that.
Oh, I've got him as well, Wes.
Let's hope he gets another yellow then. You've also got the cheap Burnley players, cheap Leeds players. Alioski came up with a goal last night. I believe he's still only 4.4 million. I don't know if he's gone up to 4.5. Dallas is around 4.8. He's getting goals and assists, clean sheets. I'm not going to list every good player there, but my general point is if you want to build for that double, have a strong bench without breaking the bank, then you can do that on the cheap. So yeah, that's how I like to play. I like to have a little bit of money on the bench, but not too much. So I like them sort of 4.5 defenders for my bench. I like a 5 million midfielder rather than going real dirt cheap. And another consideration for me is, again, a lot of people doing this who are looking to bench boost in week 19, so it will be applicable. I've got McCarthy and his backup Forster. The thinking there that if McCarthy gets injured, suspended, whatever, Forster plays, jobs are good. But obviously now I'm rethinking that for the rest of the season, because I probably want 2 playing keepers now for the rest of the season, because if Southampton's game gets called off for COVID, I've got no keeper. So I'm thinking I am going to upgrade my sub keeper to someone who has a double, and then for the rest of the season I'm just going to have 2 playing keepers. And if I get it, you're bound to get it wrong in terms of leaving points on the bench one week here and there, but I think I'd rather that than risk having no playing keeper.
And that's actually a big one there, Wes, that we, wasn't on the wee notes here before we started talking. I always used to, when I played without consuming FPL content, I always went for a rotational keeper pair. That's just what I did, and it made sense to me at the time, and I always thought this is great. But then whenever I started caring and listening to podcasts, and when we started recording this season, I think I put it to you almost... in fact, we didn't start recording at the start of the season. Who did I put this to? Who did I talk? I think I talked about this to you on one of our early episodes, but it wasn't before the season, about this keeper conundrum. And the answer from everyone within the FPL community is pretty much it's not worth having that value on the bench. You won't make it up from a keeper. Do you know, everyone wants that rag keeper who is cheap, who doesn't play. But this, again, is another consideration now with COVID, risk, etc., particularly with that double. If you're bench boosting, you'll have them both playing. But for the rest of the season, I suppose I'm really just repeating everything you said, but it's just a double down. That's a really important point. This could be a transition from the shitty keepers to just stick an extra $500,000 in and have someone who might get you a clean sheet every so often.
My thinking has definitely shifted with these fixture postponements. I was kind of along the lines of, McCarthy might get COVID himself or minor injury himself, and I'll always have a playing keeper. But now with the postponements, I'm thinking, okay, I'd rather have those two playing keepers, and it gives you a chance to, the large majority of the time, playing the keeper in the easier fixture will yield you more points. If you look at, so I've had McCarthy, if you look at his big points this season, he's got it against the lower teams. He hasn't got it against the likes of, he conceded against Man City, conceded loads against Spurs. So he has conceded against the big teams and done better against the smaller teams. So if I was rotating him, I'd have probably done okay. You do occasionally get caught out with, a random 0-0 away at Liverpool for a cheap keeper, but they are few and far between. So I think for the rest of the season, have 2 4.5-ish million keepers, rotate them. If one misses out for COVID, I'll have a keeper coming in off the bench. And then, that's like making your own luck, John. So if that does happen, and I get a 9-pointer from Meslier off the bench or something, all my mini league rivals and all my mates will be saying how lucky that was. But essentially, I'll put that money into my sub keeper to get that luck. So if that does happen, then it will be part luck that you've got the score, but also part good planning.
Winners make their own luck, Wes. I'm going to say it 5 times throughout this podcast. I highly believe in that.
Yeah, me too.
In a lot of aspects in life. But maybe we should title the podcast that. I don't know, we'll discuss that after. It's funny, I've just got a message. We have a couple more points to cover on this, but I've got a message from my cousin Brandy. Brandy Nellis, who loves his FPL. We've been in a mini league for years. We shit talk all the time, and he's having an exceptional season. He is on 1,008 points, 15k overall rank. This is, if I put this into context, last few years, he's finished 600k, 1.4 million, 2.5 million, 1 million. This is exceptional, right? He just texts me, COVID fucking the FPL up. Half my team didn't play, all in the same boat though. That's a bit of positivity. I like that. A few more in the league will get postponed for sure. We'd see. Vaccinate the players ASAP. It's the only thing we've got to look forward to, for fuck's sake. I know he listens. That's a shout out to Brandy having a hernia. I see he has Kane, KDB, John Stones and Calvert-Lewin, so he's having an absolute nightmare. Bastard. There's a lot of us in that boat. But yeah, so we've talked about the bench, the importance of that. Basically, the keepers has been covered. The last thing kind of on this, I think, there's 2 more things, but one of them is leaving transfers last minute. Essentially, forget about price changes. Yeah. The next deadline is on the 1st, New Year's Day, 4 p.m. deadline. I'm going to be making my transfers at 3:30, 3:45 if I have the balls to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Particularly with, as you said before we recorded, City are playing Chelsea, Fulham are playing Burnley. Those fixtures, based on the information we currently have, you need to be very cautious of, and I'm sure a few more will pop out of the woodwork in the next couple of days.
Yeah, so exactly. So with Fulham and City having the problems, you want to be looking at the team they're facing next, just because there's no guarantee that those squads will be fit enough to play, and and obviously the quick turnaround, like you just said, New Year's Day it's right around the corner. So avoid those teams. if you can, and wait to the last minute. So like you, John, I'll be waiting until like an hour before the deadline. I'll set an alarm on my phone so that I know, not to miss it. Wherever I am, I'll pick it up, make my last minute transfer then. Check all news before I do, go on Twitter or wherever you get your news from. And then you can make a more informed decision, which is going to be, more beneficial than saving a 0.1 here and there on team value.
Exactly. I think the team value, there's players who play for it and players who don't. I mean, my team value, is this good, Wes? What's a good team value at the minute? Do you have any idea?
I don't know, and I'm trying not to care at all this year, which is another point that I always think that there's always an option. So I think my team value is okay just because it's naturally sort of gone up. But if it wasn't, I've obviously brought my transfer in this week was Calvert-Lewin to Martial because I could afford that. But now I'm already thinking, I kind of looked at Rodrigo from Leeds, who ended up with a goal in the West Brom game, and he has a double. I was looking at all double game week players, like I said. Shea Adams is a lot cheaper and will possibly score similar to Martial. So if I didn't have that money, if I'd have had $1 million less or whatever it was, there's always options out there. Likewise, I listed a load of cheap defenders at the start. I've got someone like Andy Robertson in my team, but you can easily make up ground with cheap defenders. I've banged on about Lookman and Soychek enough in previous weeks. They're both cheap and decent options. My point being basically is I think you could actually cap yourself and play every week with sort of 5 million in the bank and still put together a good team. So that's why I'm trying not to care about team value.
Well, if you don't care, I'll tell you anyway. 103.7 is yours and mine is 104.6, but you're doing way better than me, so maybe I need to just make more transfers. I've only made 13 transfers, but I think it's one of those where, I'm saying, don't care about the team value. I genuinely haven't even looked at it this season. I haven't, and it's so important now. I come from a kind of, in terms of FPL and my content, people might know me from like a gambling background. It's about tilting the odds in your favor, and it doesn't make sense financially, FPL point wise, the risk to reward, to save 0.1 to make a transfer earlier in the week. At the minute, it's like these are very quick turnaround fixtures, and maybe you could argue there's less time for things to go wrong, but particularly when we get into back to sort of 5-6 days between fixtures or whatever, that's a lot of time for something to go wrong. So I think particularly when we get back into that sort of schedule in January, to save yourself 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 even across a few transfers, it just doesn't pay the points that you could potentially lose. It just doesn't. So
it's just not worth it.
If you're still caring about price changes, you should really take a long hard look at yourself, or come back and tell us how we're wrong. That would be interesting. Please do. If you think I'm talking shite, please tell me.
Multiple ways of playing FPL for sure. It's just some being trying to take a risk averse approach, especially this year. It is a good time to not care about those things and not take those gambles, as we've seen with the fixture postponements, etc., etc.
And the last topic on this, which might sort of segue into other things, is the blank and double plans. Does this scupper those plans in any way or change your planning? Now, I know it's only a game week or two away, but later in the season now, we're probably due to have a few more double game weeks, blanks, different sort of things going on, because there'll be more and more games postponed. Yeah, exactly.
So these fixtures that have been postponed will have to be rearranged into other double game weeks. I'm not 100% sure. I believe they won't be. It's looking unlikely that they're going to be rearranged in the short term. So these next sort of weeks 17, 18, 19 aren't likely to be affected. So I'm going to continue with my plan of having 15 double game week players for a big bench boost in week 19. If there are some random postponements, or if my squad goes to pot a little bit with a couple of injuries, I'll just rein that plan in, and instead of bench boosting, I might use a triple captain that week and have 11 players. So go aiming for a bench boost now, but being flexible that if I do get hit with 4 injuries, no problem, I'll just play 11 players instead of bench boosting. I'll have 11 double game week players, and that's good, and then save my bench boost for later on. So no, I'm still aiming for the bench boost. I'll be flexible with news that breaks. I'm targeting players from the 10 teams that do currently have doubles in week 19. But if Spurs get added into that mix, then great. I'll look at getting in Kane instead of whoever else I was targeting, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's you see, as I've already said, I suppose last week we talked about this a lot. The planning wasn't it? Was last episode, wasn't it? We talked a lot about the planning for doubles, or was that 2 episodes ago?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also just a caveat. So it doesn't change my plan, but it is obviously squad dependent, etc., etc., and it's all depending on the news. So if I'm wrong and these fixtures do get rearranged into, so we've got a big blank coming up, but some teams, you might be thinking, oh, I need a free hit in that week. Then all of a sudden, for you, John, say if Spurs get rearranged into that game week, etc., all of a sudden you've gone from maybe 6 players to 10, and therefore you could save your free hit. I'm speaking completely hypothetically, of course. So yeah, that's why with everything, be flexible, wait for news, and then tweak your plans if needs be.
Yeah, and I suppose having some sort of plan is better than having no plan, and just being flexible with those plans is key this season. How many times do you have to say flexibility and depth? But it is what it is this year. But yeah, I think the reason I brought it up was that last week we talked about it is because it was very obvious, I suppose, when we were talking then, how little of this planning I've done in previous seasons and how this season I'm trying to change that. And after we recorded last week, I went up and counted my blank and double game week players, and I decided to actually target the double more, because based on the players I had, injuries I had, and players I wanted rid of, while I had more and it suited me maybe to target the blank, they were with players that I didn't particularly want or want to keep. So it made more sense for me to just, even if it gave me a -4, I'm banking that the other players on my team can make up for it. And the reason I kept Kane and Son is because of beautiful fixtures running up to it. And I was thinking, if I'm going to pivot and make them into the double game weekers, I want to leave those premiums and do them the last week and bring in the big hitters, because I like their fixtures. But obviously that hasn't worked out too well. Yeah,
and you could also go for, I'm personally going for 15 double game week players because it suits my team structure, but I also like the strategy that some people are doing of, similar to mine, but instead of 15 double game week players, they may be going for, 12 or 13, plus the likes of really good single game week players like Kane and Son, who have a really nice fixture that week as well, who could, they could, I'm sure that they could easily match a double game week player for sure. So that's an equally viable strategy.
Well, I think that's about all I have in the notes anyway here to talk about postponed / cancelled / whatever fixtures. Is there anything you want to talk about on that, or will we go on and have we look at teams, talk more player specific stuff?
I feel like we've covered that in a lot of depth, and we don't want to keep going over the same points. So yeah, I think we've provided a lot there, which hopefully people have found useful and they can apply going forward. It's all about learning for the future game weeks. We can't affect the previous weeks that's just happened, or you can't affect it now if you've got a load of players who have missed out. But what you can do is mitigate those risks for future game weeks.
Absolutely. So we'll run into your team ways first, will we? And then we'll get to mine.
Yep.
They are very different, which is brilliant. So it'll get us around the houses, and then we'll maybe have a look at players who performed particularly well this week or disappointed, and talk sort of player specific stuff. So do you want to talk us through your team briefly?
Yeah. So my team, I've got 13 double game week players in place so far, and my next 2 transfers are planned out for Lamptey and Forster out for 2 cheap double game week options. But yeah, my current team is McCarthy in goal, a nice 9-pointer there. Loughton from Burnley with a clean sheet. Dallas, who just keeps performing. I think 4 weeks in a row he's got returns now. I think he's got a goal against Newcastle, followed that up by a goal against Man United, followed that up with a clean sheet, and then followed that up with a clean sheet and assist yesterday. And 3 bonus points. So Dallas, really loving having him. I've got Robertson and Salah, who at the time of recording haven't played yet. And then I've got Souček. Fernandes was my captain, like I alluded to earlier. Bit of a last-minute lucky assist there, but equally, you could argue that I was unlucky that he didn't score in the first half. I don't know if you saw that chance, John, but it was a good save by Patricio. Rashford with a goal, 2 goals, 2 game weeks there. So I took out De Bruyne for him, so that's working out. And I could have put Son in as well at that time because they were the similar price, but so far Rashford's done okay. Vardy and Martial up front, who both came off the bench. Again, I'm not panicking there because Vardy's had his rest, so that's kind of good for the future. It's bad now, but I'm not thinking, Vardy's missed out, I need to transfer him out. I'm thinking Vardy's rested for the running. And with Martial, I'm not really sure what's going on in terms of, is Cavani now first choice? I'm hoping not, but like I said, he's only in for week 17 and 19. I'm free hitting in 18, and then he can be gone. So it's only 2 more game weeks I've got to put up with Martial if he does frustrate. On my bench, I've got Lookman, who's obviously had a fixture postponed, so I got really unlucky there compared to you, John, who lucked out. I've got Couldn't resist that. I've got Balbuena, who didn't play, but again, I've heard reading up on that. That looks like it was just a rest. So again, bad for now, because I could have used him to come into my team this week, but it's not to be. But looking on the positive side and looking to the future, that looks like he's more nailed on for the future. And I've got Lamptey sitting there rotting, who will be coming out shortly. So yeah. Just before I move on, obviously they're my players, but in terms of, I've had a really good.
Here we go.
Good rise in the ranks, John. You want to hear about it?
He has indeed.
I'm sitting around after the auto subs are added for players, and I will go down a little bit tonight because I haven't got Salah captain. I would have gotten down even more with Kane and Son, but I'm sitting around the 25k mark in the overall rankings, and I'm just trying to get up my
10 green arrows in a row.
Yeah, and I think it was week 6 I was ranked 1.4 million. So basically the first sort of 5-6 game weeks of the season, I was hovering at around 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 million, and then got a big jump up to around 800k. And since then, every game week I've gone up a little bit each week, or some weeks a big week, and now I'm sitting around the sort of 20, 30k mark in the overall rank. So my point here isn't to brag about that at all. There's still a long way to go, and I still want to improve on that. But my point is that if you are languishing down below, then
there's hope.
3, 4, 5 game weeks, or even less than that, you can jump up. You see stories all the time of people being stuck in a rut, and then all of a sudden a few game weeks turns and they're up there. So don't give up. Don't start making stupid decisions thinking, I've got to catch up, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. I haven't done any of that. I've just played my normal game, played sensible, haven't looked particularly for differentials. I have got quite a lot in there just because they're the players I wanted, but I happily bought in Calvert-Lewin fairly late when he was on good form. He wasn't a differential. I brought him in, he got me points, and now he's gone. And likewise, like I said, I'm not targeting certain players. I'm just trying to get that squad that's going to get me the points.
Yeah, I'm the same. Actually, when I look at my sort of game week history, game week 6 seemed to be a turning point. Was that when we started recording? No, we haven't got that many episodes. Anyway, I was at a peak of 3.2 million in game week 2, and then sort of worked it back. Game week 6 had a bad week, a red arrow for the first time in a few, 1.4 million. And since then, there's only been one red arrow. Went from 1.4 to 1.3 to 600k, 400. Then I had another red arrow which got me back up over like 650, and then it's just been 500, 400, 300, 250, 215. And it just shows that, like, look, there's big numbers there, but you can very quickly get it back, and it's amazing how much a point or two matter at the minute, and will continue to matter. And people need to remember, there's a lot of people, as we always say, Margaret from The Office or whoever, who play their chips very early, who picked the Kane and Sons at the start because it made sense. So there's a lot of these people who've had blessed starts who will fall off or whatever. So in terms of actual ranks, while it might be almost a false rank in many ways, you 100%. Will climb quicker later in the season.
Yeah, it's like the whole, the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah.
Slow and steady wins the race for sure. There will be people who have raced out in front, who have played it big early doors, have got lucky early doors, or I don't want to say lucky, but they've got a lot of points early doors, and then they're going to collapse. They're not going to play the blanks and doubles correctly, and things like that. So if you keep doing those things, you will rise. Virtually, I've played FPL 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it is now, and pretty much every year, them last sort of 10 game weeks, I always go up from wherever I was at this sort of stage of the season to the end. It's just inevitable if you play it correctly each week, play it sensible. And yeah, that's all I can say really.
Sorry, right now your rank is sitting at 20k, 2605. Would you take that rank right now?
Probably after a pretty poor start. Yeah, it would mean that would be, 6, 7 or 8 consecutive finishes in the top 32k. I would like a top 10k finish, but would I take it? Possibly yes, with how crazy this season is.
Yeah, it's so unpredictable.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's your team. Will I run through mine quickly?
Yeah, but let's talk about yours.
So I'm sitting 21 points worse off than you so far this game week. And you also have the 2 Liverpool guys to go. Now, I do have Salah captain, but I've Martinez in goal, who I'm used to getting double-digit hauls, but no, unfortunately, just the 3
he's been
points.
A beast.
Dallas, who has been amazing. Kyle Walker-Peters has done me well the last couple of weeks. Taylor, who got taken off, which is a shame, particularly with a clean sheet. Bruno, Jack Grealish, who's actually been relatively disappointing over the past 5 game weeks. Do you know, he's blanked every fixture bar one where he got 10 points.
You should have got Zaha, John.
Fuck off. Man United, Tottenham up next. Yeah, I love Grealish. I think he's a cracking player. I properly went down that hole last week, but he's starting to concern me a little bit.
It's interesting with Grealish. I've got a bit of a theory with him. It's like he does create a lot of chances and he should definitely have more assists to his name. And there's also games where it's like, you know, the Liverpool game and the Southampton game where he can get you big hauls. But sometimes he's kind of lacking that sort of ruthlessness to be, you know, Salah wants to shoot as much as he can. Harry Kane loves shooting. You know, Bruno Fernandes is, you know, make sure he's involved. He takes penalties. He gets shots away. He goes into the box to try and score. He's trying to actually find that killer pass for the assists. And I'm not saying Grealish doesn't do that a lot, but maybe his finishing isn't quite as good as those players. And although like overall play, I'm pretty sure virtually every game for Villa this season he's been virtually man of the match or one of the best 2 or 3 players on the pitch, and obviously played so well for England, etc., etc. But in terms of it, translating that into FPL points, there's something just not happening for him. Whether that's a bit of bad luck in terms of his teammates not finishing his chances, there's definitely some of that. There's so many games I watch where I think that should be a Grealish assist. But yeah, for whatever reason, he's just not. He is and he isn't, isn't he? He is getting FPL points still. He did get huge scores against, like I said, Liverpool, Southampton. He did get a 10-pointer, I think it was, against West Brom.
No, he's 4 double-digit hauls. He had a West Ham 10-pointer as well. Do you know,
he is doing well, but I feel like with how good he is, I feel like he should, and maybe next season or in the future, or I don't know, maybe a stage this season, he will go on blistering FPL form as well and just be and score as well as those real premium players. But just at the minute, like you say, he's going through games and affecting it without getting the FPL points.
I think, like, I can genuinely see him getting a transfer to a bigger club. I don't know who that is, because I don't know who needs a kind of left winger. Can he play on the right? I don't know, but he's brilliant on that left-hand side, cutting in.
Played 10 as well.
But if he, he's been playing there as well. But if he, I just always say he's so dangerous on the left. But if he gets that move to a team that he gets 90 minutes each game week, I can see him becoming one of those. And this is a big statement. I'm really sucking Grealish off the last couple of weeks, but I could see him becoming like a borderline FPL great over a few seasons because he does everything right. And if he's feeding in players who finish chances,
that will help. I
just see him being brilliant. But maybe I'm just.
We'll see. I think, like I said, I think he's got a chance to definitely develop into that player. There's some talk, and I kind of agree in terms of, is he a ruthless finisher? I don't know how many he's got a lot of his points from assists this year, hasn't he? He has obviously chipped in with a few goals, but he's not one of those type of midfielders who could we compare to? I don't know. Obviously Lampard back in the day was a midfield player who would go in and score goals. Bruno Fernandes now, that sort of player. He's not that sort of. You're not expecting a goal every time Grealish plays. You're kind of expecting assists, I guess.
I suppose that's the difference, isn't it?
That's not me. Like, I do still think he's a good asset, and he definitely could have a big period. But just at the minute, like you said, there's a few blanks in there, isn't there? And a couple of assists against West Brom.
He's the type of player that could punish you. You get rid of him now after holding him all season, and he goes to United and somehow scores 2, or gets a golden assist. That can happen.
100%,
Tottenham as well. Anyway, moving on. Son is in the team, unfortunately, but I'll keep him. A couple of great fixtures coming up. I've kept him this long. I'm going to keep him for the next few. Bruno, I think I mentioned. Salah captain, which I'm thankful for. Calvert-Lewin isn't playing. Bamford. Bamford's on penalties.
Yes.
Bamford has penalties until he misses one.
Yeah.
He's told us as much.
This is a good opportunity to talk about Bamford and Leeds in general. Just looking back so Bamford's got 10 goals, 5 assists, and that's obviously only one of them has been a penalty. If he took every penalty this season, he'd possibly have a few more goals as well. Just brilliant. Leeds are brilliant. There's so many options there, and they're all so cheap. You've got defenders Alioski and Dallas getting attacking returns for under 5 million. You've got all none of them are priced over 6 million. You've got like the likes of Jack Harrison, Rafinha, and then at front you've even got 2 strikers you can pick from in Bamford and Rodrigo. And again, the only player at Leeds over 6 million is Bamford. So that's another reason why that kind of bringing it back to that point. I haven't got triple Leeds. I've got something like, say, Rashford in midfield or Martial up front. I could easily swap one of those two down to a Leeds midfielder or striker and just sit there with 3 million in the bank and not be punished points wise.
Yeah, I think their midfield in particular have some great enablers, and like I'm looking there, if I did bite the bullet on the likes of Grealish, do you know there's Harrison for 5.4. Now I'm not sure if I would, but I mean they've so many options.
They've got a double. Rafinha as well. They've got a double. They've got decent fixtures in the meantime, or they did. When I brought him Bamford, he started off a good fixture run. So yeah, I think Leeds are definitely a team that, we're not breaking any news here to say that you should be looking at Leeds assets, but yeah, if you're targeting the double, you need enablers. Like if I was you, I'd be looking at Grealish out for the likes of Rafinha. You'd save yourself a couple of mil to reinvest elsewhere, and you'd be bringing in a double game week option. And that's it's no detriment to, or it's nothing against Grealish. Grealish will score points over the course of the season, of course he will, but sometimes it's not about that. It's about targeting the fixtures and the form. And the price points as well. You're saving yourself 2 mil.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to be saving. And again, while I preach at one part of the podcast about don't care about value, Grealish, I got him at like 7.2. He's worth 7.8 now, and I'll get 7.5 for him. So it's like, ugh, I'm gonna want him back. But look, you need to take those hits. You've took hits like that this season when I maybe haven't, and you're sitting 200k above me.
Yeah, exactly. A big change for me was the week where I took out Son, Kane and Grealish as part of a -8 move.
I think that was the difference between us, because we started the little side bet we have about painting each other at the end of the season.
Yeah,
we were pretty much in the same rank,
same points.
And you made that big change, and I still have Kane, Son and Grealish, and look what's happened.
Yeah, and they've done. I think the week I took Kane and Son out, they both did well at home to Arsenal. A goal each and assist each, but since then they've been just Spurs aren't scoring the amount of goals. And again, this isn't me saying they're bad assets, but I just felt that Kane to Bamford was my move, and possibly now over that time period, I guess Bamford's, especially with the postponement tonight, which is lucky of course, Bamford's probably outscored Kane in that time period, despite doing well against Arsenal. And then going Grealish to Salah definitely worked. I needed to get Salah back in, so obviously I needed to free up the money from Kane. So definitely a bit of, it could have backfired, but sometimes it's not always about not believing in assets. Of course, I'd love to have like a 30-man FPL squad with Kane, Son still in it. Of course, they're like I love both those players, and Grealish. Those three are right up there in my top 10 favourite players to watch, but they're just not in my team because I've decided to go down a different way. And yeah, it can work or it can backfire. You just got to kind of have a strategy, I guess.
So yeah, that's the Bamford Leeds bit. Kane, my vice captain, isn't there, and then on the bench of Forster, who doesn't really matter but might start to matter as we've discussed. Souček coming on for the first time in weeks. I didn't get any of the 3 goals he's scored since he's been on my bench, but I'll get his 3 points this week. Lamptey there, and Lewis, who I don't have much faith in getting me any sort of return tonight against Liverpool, assuming the game goes ahead. You never know. And yeah, so that's how I'm set up. I'm going to have a look at them. I'm going to have a look at these injuries I have, Taylor and Lamptey. I'm going to have a look at Grealish. I might take one of my first, I don't know if I've even taken a point hit this season. I've took 1 4-point hit. This could be time to take another 4 or 8, make some wholesale changes, planning for that double, and getting rid of some shite. And again, mitigating risk, which is the underlying theme of this episode, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, Wes, before we wrap up the podcast, I suppose we'll look through some players that we don't actually have or haven't discussed, who we're either interested in or something drastic has happened.
Good shout.
Looking through other players who've either had a good, bad game week or whatever, is there anyone you want to talk about? I'm just looking there, I suppose, again, at Timo Werner, another blank 18 minutes. Frank's losing faith, do you know? Yeah,
he's got to go, yeah. In terms of Werner, he got 45 minutes against Arsenal, and then got dragged at half-time because he was poor again, and then he came off the bench. You've got players like Giroud scored again, Abraham scoring. I think they're wingers. I don't know too much. I'm not targeting Chelsea players, so I think they've got like their sort of attacking midfield wingers coming back soon, so there's going to be limited game time for Werner when he gets back to form, but yeah, at the minute he's definitely in a void. A player that I regret, so a couple of weeks ago I had both Justin and Lamptey, but Justin had Spurs away and I wanted to get Robertson back in, and Lamptey I was just going to give him one more game week with Sheffield United at home, but he didn't even play that game. So the lesson there for me is I should have just forgot about the initial fixture in the 1 game week. I should have just taken the fact that, okay, let's just have Justin against Spurs and let's get rid of Lamptey because that's a better long-term move. And now I'll be sitting here. If I'd done that, I'd have an extra double game week player. I'd have a player who's actually fit and playing, and I wouldn't have to waste it, use another transfer now and Lamptey out. And Justin was a player I wanted, so I should have thought more longer term there rather than just looking at the fixtures and seeing, a plum fixture for Lamptey and a tough one for Justin. I should have scrapped that. So yeah, Justin's a good choice. He's got a double game week coming up. He's still only 5 mil. So again, fits into the theme of a good cheap option with a double game week. Sorry, I should say.
He could very easily be my Tariq Lamptey replacement, and I'll definitely be looking at him. Someone, speaking of highly owned defenders, owned by 24.5% of people, Chilwell came back to bite everyone who ditched him based off that injury in inverted commas.
Yeah, but it wasn't too bad because it was I got rid of him based on I thought he was out, and then he played in the Arsenal game, didn't he?
Yeah.
But then he actually got a 1 pointer in that game, and then the following game got a 5 pointer. So it's not too bad, but it's still a bit like could have saved a transfer there.
He was my. Sorry, I'm talking over you there. He was my premium defender for the last lot of weeks, and I got a few great returns off him. But when I seen that injury, it was a good time to downgrade, put the money elsewhere. Yeah. I think I don't know what I did there. Maybe Mitchell I got rid of or something. But yeah, it's not that he's bit me, but it's more a case of like, I wish I'd kept you on the bench. Do you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel about Justin, especially. And I also took out Chilwell, but yeah, I know that feeling.
Cresswell's having an interesting season. Do you know, he's on a lot of set pieces. He's using that left foot to great effect. 5 assists. Now, one of them, I suppose we haven't really talked over the last 2 game weeks. He got a 4-pointer, then a 6-pointer, 10 points over 2 weeks. And, you know, he's a double game week player with 2 plum fixtures that week. He is Burnley and West Brom.
Yeah, and he's more... And for people like me and others who have taken the cheaper route with Balbuena and Kufal, those 2 players have both been rested. Whereas if you look at Cresswell's minutes, he's played 90 minutes in every single game week. So maybe he's a bit better in terms of his fitness, or maybe just Moyes just doesn't want to rotate him, or maybe he's due a rest. I don't know. But in terms of his nailed onness, he's trumped the likes of the cheaper options like Balbuena and Kufal. And like you said, he's got 5 assists, which is very good. And also, he's definitely got some goal threat as well. He takes a few direct free kicks and he's obviously got a really good left foot. So don't be surprised by the end of the season to see him have maybe 1 or 2 goals there. Yeah.
So they're the defenders that kind of jump out at me that are relatively highly owned and had sort of an interesting couple of weeks. In midfield, is there anyone you don't want to talk about?
I guess it's, again, my mind's just sort of fixated on the sort of double game week players. Rashford's got a goal in each of his last 2 games. Leicester away, where he could have had 2 or 3. He then got a goal against Wolves in a pretty drab game, so that was, fairly not fortunate return, but you feel quite fortunate when the game goes like that. Souček, he's done really well in the last few weeks. He's got a double game week, and again I keep saying this, but he's that cheap option which allows you to get those premium players in. And again, another reason not to worry about money. If you think, I can't afford Bowen, a lot of people had Bowen up on a pedestal above Souček, but regardless of if they were the exact same price, I'd have chose Souček. And it's proven to be correct, and he's cheaper. So if you've got the likes of Bowen in your team, who he looked really promising, he had a double game week. Now he's kind of fallen out. Moyes is maybe not fancying him as much anymore. Then a simple downgrade to Souček, save yourself a bit of money, and you've still got those plum West Ham fixtures for the double. Other midfielders,
I think Pedro Neto. And I'm not even saying from an FPL standpoint, so it's almost like I shouldn't even talk about it, but he is owned by like 14% of people.
Yeah, way too many.
He's not great from an FPL standpoint. I wouldn't recommend him for FPL. Now, okay, there's definitely worse out there, but I suppose for 6 million. But the point I'm trying to bring here is he looks like he's going to be an absolutely quality player in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, he's young.
He looks
as well.
like this. He genuinely looks the real deal. I could see him getting a big move and having a really good career. I really can. So yeah. And
in terms of FPL returns so far this season, if you're looking at things like key things you want to be looking at in terms of how many minutes they play per game, he's got a 20 minute in there in the league, so 1 rest out of 16 games. He's fairly nailed on. And if you look at all those sort of 80-minute plus ones. There's a lot of 90 minutes, so he gets the game time, which is good. 4 goals, 4 assists in 16 games. Not great, but Wolves haven't been great so far. So again, for me, I'm definitely not looking at him if you're looking at single game week players. So if you're doing a different strategy and building towards not using your free hit in the blank game week 18, then he's an option. But again, from an FPL point of view, he kind of flatters to deceive, a bit like his teammate Podence, who again, they both look like quality players and they've definitely both got bright futures. But are they going to be getting you those FPL returns now? Are they worth spending more money on them rather than the cheaper ones from Leeds / Soichet Lookman? So they're kind of potentially overpriced compared to those. And so Wolves need to definitely improve from an attacking point of view.
Yeah, I agree. Is there anyone else who jumps out at you anywhere? I suppose Adams, Watkins, that kind of budget striker, 6 million. Adams hasn't done much. Watkins punished a few people who got rid of him. Yeah,
one last two more midfielders if you are looking for double game week options. So there's Maddison in there. He seems to be having injury concerns this season, not really getting consistent minutes. But in the last, from game week sort of 8 to 15, he was definitely a regular in the Leicester team again. He missed out against Crystal Palace, but that again could be a bit like Vardy. That could be a good thing, and that could mean now he's nailed for the double game week. And he had some form leading up to that. He got 2 against Brighton, a couple of blanks, then an assist. So he's kind of one of those players again who, a little bit like Grealish, kind of runs the show for Leicester. Looks like their best player every game, but then does he get the FPL returns? But he's worth considering closer to the in game week 19. If you think he is nailed on for 2 starts, he is worth considering. Mount as well, he's ticked along.
Can we talk about the absolute biggest travesty in FPL?
Go on.
Guess who is owned by 5.6% of managers and hasn't got one attacking return all season, has scored 23 points this season, has played in every single game for their team.
Ooh.
23 points, they featured in every game, and they're owned by 5.6% of managers.
That is crazy. Striker?
Midfielder. But more of a winger.
I've no idea. Who is it?
This is one for everyone at home. Make your guesses. You ready? You want to know?
Traore.
Yeah, Adama Traore. I didn't realise he was owned by so many people, and he cost 6.1 million.
I guess that might be dead sort of from last. Yeah, it's definitely overpriced. Is that people still living off last year? Is that people who don't?
5.6% obviously started the season with them and haven't looked at their team since. But 23 points. Jeez.
Yeah, I can't believe that sort of downturn for him. I guess it's a mixture of, I don't know what that is. Maybe not having
Jimenez
playing a few games at wing back, not having enough minutes at the start, and then not feeding Raul Jimenez confidence. That's the thing with FPL. I just want to make a point, John, in terms of obviously our friend LCFC Statman who brought up Rashford, and we dismissed him at the time. And the point there on Twitter, I was having a bit of back and forth with him where I showed him an article I wrote for another website which showed that I've been backing Rashford a lot this season, but just at that specific time when he asked, we didn't back him. And that's likewise with Traore. If you said to me now, bring in Traore, if someone asked us that, we'd both laugh them out the room. But last season, he was a valid pick because he was getting him and Jimenez combined tons of times last season, and he was getting the odd goal. So Traore last season, he was definitely a good pick. But right now, 100% a massive no. So that's the thing. It's all based on current form, what the fixtures are like. Are they nailed? Are they going to be playing regularly? Are they happy at their club? Are they producing? Are they looking like they're going to score? And so say if Traore was hitting the post every game, but just not quite getting the returns, then he might be a sneaky outside bet to actually come into form. But he just doesn't. He's not producing anything to suggest a return to form. Does my point make sense in terms of sort of players can become good assets at certain times and then others not?
Well, absolutely. It's your flexibility and it's about jumping around. I've been too static, I think, this season. You got in and out of KDB. You brought him in, captained him for a good fixture, got 28 points or something. This was back around game week 10, I think. You kept him for 3 weeks. A premium player who cost that much, who probably took a good bit of rejigging to get in, and after 3 weeks you said, nah, and you got rid of him, and he's done shite since. So, it's about having that flexibility. People who are the plum pick of the week, situations change very quickly in football. Adama Traore is obviously getting a lot of game time. What he brings to the pitch, which isn't necessarily goal threat or assist threat even, it is the fact that teams shit themselves and they double up on him. There's double up again, and that might create space for the other players to do more damage on the other wing. So that there is, again, it goes back to that point. There's good FPL players and there's good players, and that there's a lot to it. Whereas, based on time, we'll take a couple of questions. A lot of them have been covered. Exiled FI, Rich FPL, fair play to you lads. Just give us questions every week. We've covered your questions in the first 20 minutes, half an hour. LCFC Statman, you've gave him his shout out, which is pretty much what he was looking for.
Yeah, he loves Rashford.
FPL 350, what are your thoughts on taking hits to optimise your team for the double game week? He used his wild card early on, and he's got 10 of it in his team. And we'll just take that part of the question based on time. I suppose taking hits to optimise your team for the double game week.
Yeah, no, I'm all for it. So if even for my squad that's in a really good shape, if I bounce back into week 19 with an injury, and I'll happily take a -4 for a double game week player. If that player, rather than, obviously if I'm bench boosting, I don't want someone to score me 0. If I do a -4 for just a player who plays twice, there's 4 points. I've broken even without a clean sheet or an attacking return. So the upside is there for everyone to see, and the break-even point is really easy to achieve in a double game week. They just need to play to break even. If the person you're transferring out isn't going to play, if they've got a long-term injury. So yeah, I'm all for that, and especially if you're bringing in sort of high-impact players, if you're getting rid of, an average single game week player for a double game week player who has potential to score big. Again, Rashford's on the mind. I'll use him as an example. He got a brace away at Sheffield United. He's the type of player who can get really big scores. And if you're taking out that average sort of player who ticks along with an assist here and there for someone explosive, maybe Rashford's a bad example, I don't know, but I think the point still stands in terms of you can get a lot of gains by taking out an average single game week player for the potential of an explosive double game week player.
Very good. FPL instead of FPL, I like that. Given all the chaos surrounding postponements and last-minute benchings, etc., would you say this is the definitive season where the scales tip in favour of luck rather than skill? Full disclosure, having a torrid season sitting outside the top 2 mil currently. Wes, I asked this so I could say it one more time. Yeah. Winners make their own luck. Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. I don't buy into that at all. I do agree that if you've got, if you have been unlucky to have a lot of Spurs, Man City, Everton assets this week, I do get that. You can have a poor week, but you can bounce back from a poor week. Like I said, with my own team this week, I've only had 8 starters, and I won't even get a full 11 players. I'll have Vardy and Martial off the bench for 1-pointers, but then the other players have made up for it. And you might have had a bad game week this week, and like I said, you might have had bad luck this week, but you can get, it's kind of swings and roundabouts. And I think if anything, this week, these sort of seasons lean more towards the skill factor, because there's even more things to think about and contemplate, like the fact that I kind of admitted that my mistake of tripling up on Man United players, it hasn't bit me in the arse yet, but I see that as a mistake that I want to rectify. So, that's applying skill rather than luck, in my opinion. Yeah, I think it's definitely a season where people who sort of navigate the circumstances and the risky aspect of the game plan better and cover their bases better. There's skill involved in all that, but you could definitely, through a little bit of research and a little bit of time, give yourself a really good chance this season. It's not just about picking players, if that makes sense. It's not just about your captaincy 100%. Choices. It's not just about having the template and picking the right captain late in the season. There's a lot to navigate here, and I think while obviously luck will be a huge part of that, I still do think that the scales are still firmly in the favour of skill, because I guarantee you that the well-known faces around the FPL world will still have cracking seasons. Yeah. And this is probably a great opportunity for those guys and gals to get that top 10k finish, the ever-elusive top 10k. So we'll see how that one pans out. Exactly. You see someone like FPL General on Twitter, Mark McGettigan, good pal of mine, really nice guy, but he's he's got a really stellar FPL history, 3 top, crazily good, 3 top 500 finishes, and he's doing well this year. I think he's probably still ahead of me, and I'm ranked 20k.
I'm not exactly sure what he's on, but at one stage, yeah, he's hovering around the sort of top 20k ish mark, like I am. So yeah, no, I don't buy into the luck factor. But equally, if I ever do have a bad season, it will definitely be because of bad luck.
Absolutely. I think General's sitting on 12k getting into this game week. God knows where he's at now or how his team's getting on. I see that I don't know what transfers he made. I'm just looking on his December 20th tweet. He definitely had Diaz, De Bruyne and Son and Calvert-Lewin. So
yeah,
he's probably been hit a little bit,
be
like us all.
Bench points, yeah.
Last question of the day, and we'll wrap this up. Captaincy is literally the statement from Mo3Taz. Fair play to you, I'll chuck you a like. Captaincy, because it's something we didn't discuss. Looking into next week, my armband is firmly on Salah, and the vice captain on probably going to be on Keane. I'm not going to put it on Fernandes against Villa. I'm going to put it on Keane at Leeds. I think they're more susceptible to the counter attack and the pace of maybe Son's a better vice.
Yeah, I like attack. I do like attacking players against Leeds. So yeah, again, if you've got Spurs players, you're probably thinking goals for Son and Kane, but probably not a clean sheet if you've got the likes of Reguilon or however you say it. But yeah, in terms of captaincy for my own team, yeah, I'm not sure yet. So yeah, this isn't me going to be changing my mind, but currently it's on Vardy away at Newcastle.
You've done it before, Wes. You'll do it again.
I have. You've got to be flexible in FPL, John. And my vice is on Salah, depending on how Salah, if Salah looks really good tonight. My thinking with Vardy is he's rested. He will definitely play. He's playing, a poor-ish Newcastle team. And Vardy's surprised me how many returns he's got so far. So 11 goals, 7 assists. And he's also had he's missed a couple of games for injury. So out of the 16 weeks, he's missed one full game, so that makes it only 15 weeks. He's came off the bench twice, so 13 starts, 11 goals, 7 assists. That's really, really good. And he's missed a penalty in that time as well. So my point being is Vardy should be kind of in the bracket of, we kind of see him as the tier below Kane, Salah, De Bruyne, Bruno, but I think he should be in that tier.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's been an outstanding FPL option for years now.
Yeah.
He's just elite, isn't he?
Yeah, and that fixture, and also I think if Salah had sorry to jump in again, so yours is firmly on Salah, but Southampton away, I know Liverpool can dick anyone, and Southampton sometimes just crumble, but they've been pretty good defensively, and that's why I'm kind of thinking Vardy's got the easier fixture. But I will, in terms of what I will say about my own team, I haven't. There's a tool on Twitter that a lot of people use and post screenshots of how many captain points they've got, and mine's really poor compared to most people. I haven't.
What's that website? I'll check mine.
It's Premier Tools FPL or something. You might have to just search Premier Tools. But yeah, have a look. But my point being is that, again, I think there'll be people out there that are ranked worse off than me, but have done much better in terms of captaincy calls. And again, this week I might have already made a mistake. I went Bruno Fernandes, who got a 6-pointer. Salah's obviously going to play Newcastle later on today, and Salah is probably going to outscore that. So yeah, don't take my word for captaincy. It's a tough thing picking captaincy week on, week out, because you're normally picking between two good players who both have a good fixture, and to call that exactly is usually tough. But I think just captaining sort of those premium players in easy fixtures over the course of the season, you won't get it exactly right every week, but you should end up with a good score.
You've made me doubt Salah as a pick. I might have to go with one of the Spurs guys. A ballsy Son captain, Kane feeding him through, Son burying 2 goals.
Yeah.
Oh, but Kane's on penalties. God damn it, Wes. Salah or a Spurs man? And Bruno at home to Villa looks good too.
Yeah, Villa have been a surprise package in terms of how good they've been. But again, Bruno's one of those, are we really backing Villa to keep Bruno out?
It'll
be tough.
He's got a 17-pointer, a 12-pointer and a 6-pointer. Yeah. You'd have to fancy him getting the game, and then they'll have 2 weeks off. Villa at home.
So, to summarise captaincy, we're both, in terms of our own team, we're both unsure. And in terms of who's the best, if you pick out of any single player this game week, who would be the best option? It's again tough. It's going to be a really split week with people. Some people will go Bruno, some will go Salah, some will go for more of a punty one like I'm talking about with maybe a Vardy type player. The Spurs guys as well, even though Leeds are, in their easier games, Leeds are keeping clean sheets, but will they be able to keep one against Spurs? just looking at the fixtures now, seeing if there's any other standout fixture. And again, Chelsea and Man City play each other, so those sort of assets you probably don't want. And Liverpool don't have a really tough fixture against a top 6 team, but they've got the next best team probably in Southampton.
Well, the thing, I think,
one of the next best
what's
things.
really going to dictate my choice will be how many minutes Salah gets tonight. That would help. That'll be it. If he gets 90 minutes, he's not my captain. If he comes off after 60, he's definitely in with a shout. That's what's going to swing it. That's why it's hard to sort of give an answer now. But I think Spurs look good. I'm probably not going to pick Bruno against Villa because Villa could very easily go and score 3 goals. But it's one of those. I have a feeling about that game where it's one of those where people will be going, Fernandes, Villa at home, I'm captain on him. Some people will definitely be thinking that, but I just think it could be the surprise package. Martinez in goal could end up with an early 9-pointer with 14 million saves. Yeah,
and Villa have already done well against Arsenal away. Was that 3-0, and then Liverpool at home 7-2. So they've got a bit of pedigree against the big 6 at the minute.
I just don't think it's the safest captain, but look, it's a tough week for it actually because there's a few viable options. Normally it's pretty easy, but anyway, Wes, speaking of captains, I've averaged 12 points per game week for my captains, apparently 192 total captain points. I don't know if that's good or bad.
192, I think it's about average maybe compared to some other people I've seen on Twitter. Probably better than mine. I don't know if you can run mine on that tool.
If you have your ID, I can.
3765.
That's your ID? That's very low, isn't it?
Yeah, so the way FPL do it is as soon as the game's released, if you're the first to get it, you get the number 1.
Yes.
The lower number is like a badge of honour.
Oh, so everyone races for that. Right, let me hit this. But while I'm hitting that, we'll see how you got on. Just another sort of reminder to people, go and download the Fanslide app, give it a go, particularly before there's a big 2-week break. There's a lot of games this week for you to try out. See how you get on. Add me and Wes as friends. And we'll see you on the leaderboards. Wes, you're a bastard. You have 210 captain points. You're doing better than me there as well.
But again, that we swayed. My captain's already played this game week, so take 12 off of that. And if your captain beats me today, so we're probably about similar.
Yeah, we are. You've got 13.1 points per game week. I've Salah to go, so we'll keep a track on that this season. But Wes, look, it's been a pleasure. Any parting comments?
No, again, thanks to everyone for, again, like the last pod, just really thankful for the fact that the pod's growing, people are liking it, and just to keep helping us growing it. Send it in your WhatsApp groups, retweet it, share, subscribe. 5 stars, is it, John? Is that what we want on Apple?
Ideally, yeah.
Yeah, and just all that. It's great.
And we're not even just saying that, Wes. The podcast is growing, and I think I love it whenever it's those sort of awkward ones, which there's quick turnarounds, but still we're getting more plays in each week. Every week's getting more and more. Quite often with podcasts, what you get is the first episode will always have the most plays because people are intrigued and people want to see it, and then people who come in after the fact will go and click on the first episode. But each episode is getting stronger, so you are doing us the favour of spreading the word. That's the best thing you can do. 100%.
And another thing to add on to that, obviously we've done these last 2 pods have been combining game weeks because of like the crazy turnaround speeds, and getting individual pods out for the game week just wouldn't have been good quality. So, but now there's going to be a lot more space between the game weeks. There's going to be one for every single game week, hopefully released consistently Tuesday afternoon time, UK time. So we'll get that sort of, there's been no consistency to life in terms of football over the last week or 10 days or so, with Christmas, with Boxing Day, with then more fixtures. But a bit of normality will be nice in the new year.
Absolutely. Well, look, we'll chat to you I suppose next game week. Well, geez, wait there. We'll discuss that ourselves, Wes, but we've got a bit of a break now. We'll work it all out. We'll chat to you soon. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.